Welcome back to another edition of the Pear Genius podcast. I'm your host, Alex. Kati's in the house, and today we have Tami Schiltz. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly.
You did not. That is Tami Schiltz.
Schiltz.
Don't worry. Everybody does it. I just expect it. I've been called worse, so we'll go with it.
My dyslexia kicked in. Tami Schiltz.
Well, it's like Schlitz beer, so I think people see that and they think Schlitz beer. I did not marry into that family, unfortunately. So,
I thought that was like Goldschlick vodka or something. Or am I making that
No,
up?
that'd be even better, but no.
Okay.
Just Schiltz.
Well, welcome. And Tami comes to us via Jamie White, who was on the podcast before. And when Tami reached out, I saw in her little email signature, childhood trauma. I'm like, yes. So many people don't realize that they are messed up. It's our job to point it out. Dude, you're messed up. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm
sorry.
Just kidding. But the realization for people, it's like, oh, that's why I am the way I am.
Yes.
It's so fascinating. And I always credit Helen Rose for lending me this book, or I think, yeah, she lent this book to me, Adult Children of Alcoholics. And I read that and I was like, wow, it just shining the light on why you are the way you are is, I think is one of the most important things, especially for growth. If I could go back in a time machine and fix everything that I was when I was 20, great. But the best time to plant a tree is today then. And I'll do that. Yeah. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And it sounds weird to be like, it's fun to talk about this stuff, but it is. And because it's so enlightening and it's helping people become aware, validate their story, make those connections so that they can step into what they're supposed to do as an adult and not be holding themselves back. So I love these conversations.
And how did you get involved in this? Like, how did you want to poke the bear and wake the bear up with this subject?
Sagittarius. So apparently it's in my nature to be that person.
There you go. What's your birthday?
December 9th.
Oh, a 9th. Nice.
Yeah, I'm a pretty hardcore Sagittarius. It's funny because I never really resonated with the being blunt part of it. But now I see, oh, there it is. Yep. Now, but I do it on the podcast. So I can be more blunt here versus a one-on-one conversation because that's my own childhood trauma. But it's really fascinating to me how I got into this work, because when I look back at my childhood story, it has all led me here. It was very clear now, hindsight, that I was always meant to do this work, because my journey started off with body dysmorphia in 3rd grade, and then trying to be anorexic in high school. And then I was an emotional binge eater in college and put on 40 pounds. Well, I was an exercise sports science major. So as you can imagine, those two things didn't go great together, not great for the self-confidence. And when I obviously couldn't exercise my way out of my issues, I thought I would try to put more knowledge on the problem. And so I got my master's degree in nutrition thinking that would fix me. It did not. I just kept searching outside of myself. Everything was outside of myself. I would be on infomercials at night while all of my friends were, downtown drinking. And I would be trying to order the latest exercise gizmo or gadget because I'm like, well, that will fix me. Honestly, my life, if I wasn't eating 12 fat-free muffins while I was doing that.
There's no fat in it. You can eat as many as you want.
Exactly. 100%. That was my logic. Fat-free and calorie-free at that time. Apparently it didn't. But
so I just had this lightning bolt that, you know what? Your childhood traumas are probably 10 times more fascinating. Like, your story is probably 10 times more fascinating than maybe anybody else's, because already this little preview, I'm like, wow, that is amazing to battle the nutrition and the exercise and the body aspect of being a woman.
Ooh. Yeah, that was real. But again, now I can see it all stems back to this, and I can think about when that first started and how that started. It all makes sense to me. And so I became a dietitian thinking I wanted to help people, but it was really like to fix myself. But then I wanted to help people like me. I get it. I know what it's like to eat entire pizzas in your car when you know better, but I couldn't stop myself. And so I loved being able to sit with people in their stories and be able to connect with them that way. And I felt like I was a really effective dietitian because I had that experience. And it was really when I dropped the expertise and really just became open and vulnerable that I was the most effective at my job. And I wish people realize that vulnerability is a superpower. And the more that I was open with my story, the more I could help people. And so fast forward, I was working at a hospital setting here, actually in weight loss surgery, helping people. And I loved that. But it was a stepping stone. Like I think there is where I learned that sharing my story was really helpful. It brought their walls down. But I was always meant to be an entrepreneur, apparently. So even though I'm very like fly by the seat of your pants, which is not a great strategy. So when you talk like, I always have a plan, I'm like, yeah, me too. But I was doing online coaching when COVID came around, and I was leading a program. It was called Fiercely Focused. It was for women. It was focused on nutrition, and we were really focusing on body kindness. So I felt like I was getting a little bit deeper into the issues. We were really trying to think about what our body does for us on a daily basis just to keep us alive. But then you think about all the things, especially women, have put our bodies through, and how horrific we talk to our body, how I would starve my body, how I would punish my body with exercise and with stuffing it with food to numb its emotions. And I expected it to process everything for me because I didn't know how to. And so I led that program and I loved it and it was super effective, but it was just a matter of time before they would fall back into self-sabotaging habits. And I was like, hold up, not on my watch. Because I had been that. I was a professional self-sabotager. And when I went on this quest, it's so interesting. It's a long story. You can check out my podcast on episode 2.
Cool. We will.
But
we'll put the link
just
in.
like how I followed my intuition to know, I got into like energy work. And then through there, I found inner child work. And when I found inner child work, it was just like when all the dots to the matrix, it was just like I could see it all. I was like, oh my gosh, this has all been a childhood wound of not feeling worthy my entire freaking life. And it all made sense. And I was like, I can never just hand out another meal plan to somebody without doing this work because I'm just giving them a Band-Aid then to cover up this wound. I can use that meal plan to help heal the wound, but I will no longer cover it up and act like it's not there.
Right. And I would say most people pretend there isn't this underlying factor.
Yes.
It's, oh, you're fat. Oh, it's just because you eat too much.
No. Yeah, I just like food. No, we all do. It's much, much more than that. You're right. You're absolutely right.
It's I'm waiting for Kati to jump in here for me, but I think that this is very fascinating. And do you find it that most people are receptive when you dig a little bit deeper, or do they try to protect that and just keep it on the surface?
I think by the time people get to me, it's like their inner child is, you need Tami, and they feel safe enough to open up. And I think that's where the podcast has been great, because I think it's helped people get curious. And as long as you can come in with curiosity, they're more likely to be willing to go there. And I think people also, once they start hearing maybe the way I talk about it, that it isn't this big scary thing. You don't have to go in and relive these big events. It's really more of, how do you help your inner child through that by giving them what he or she needed in that moment, which is generally just love and support and that emotional support that maybe wasn't there.
Right. Because it's not always about addiction. A lot of it could go to comfort, like comforting yourself.
Yeah. Self-soothing. I think that's where addictions really start, is especially in childhood, and food is a big one for kids because that's really all they have available to them. It's a way to self-soothe. It's a way to regulate when it's really all they have access to, when they're not given the tools to learn how to do that emotionally. We try to find things outside of ourselves, which then can, absolutely lead to addiction. And we don't know how to self-regulate. So we use substances to numb it because it feels overwhelming and it feels like too much. Our egos are pretty genius in that regard. Like, how can I protect little Tam? Oh, all of these ways to numb and suppress and dissociate. And when we look at all the ways that we do that as kids, but especially as adults, and it's all protection.
Yeah, it's weird because as soon as you started talking, my inner child came up, and we're going to sit here. We're going to make sure this is a safe space. And now we're going to have to say something. So while you guys were talking, it was like, okay. And this is something I've never, ever said to anyone except maybe Alex, but so much of what you said resonated. And it was, I did the anorexia thing too. I did the overeating, and it is so bad that I have no relationship with my siblings because of it. So the three of us are dysfunctional together because it's always a competition for who can be the skinniest, because the skinniest sibling is going to be the most successful. And that's how I guess it was defined by my parents or whatever the situation was. So I feel like the body kindness, like the talking kindly to your body, when you mentioned that was like, oh man, like more of that, because you're right, the inner dialogue is so severe. And I always call it the Punisher. But if I've eaten what I think is too much, the Punisher comes out and off I go to power yoga or off I go for a run. It's not because I'm trying to get in shape or be healthy to live longer. The actual reason is because if I'm skinnier than my siblings, I've won.
Yeah. Oh, I can give your inner child a hug, a virtual hug. I feel that.
It's embarrassing to say that out loud.
No, oh, I hope that you don't feel embarrassed, because honestly, I feel like your inner child just thank you for owning that truth and saying that out loud, and how many people can resonate with that and understand how deep that goes and why that is, because you're an intelligent woman. Like, we know better, but it isn't about that, because it's so rooted in that childhood experience. Like, your ego's like, no, that's the only way you can feel seen and loved by your parents. Still, even as an adult, that trigger is so strong that all the logic and knowledge goes right out the window. And we still feel ourselves being led by this little girl who just wants to be loved unconditionally, regardless of how much she weighs, regardless of how much she achieves, regardless of how much whatever.
That's where I come in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yay me.
Yeah. And honestly, when you can find that safe person, like, who just absolutely loves you unconditionally, like, it feels, we don't even know how to handle it. Like, what? You're safe and you would just want to love me regardless, and I don't have to do X, Y, and Z to achieve that. Like, it, and we'll find ways to sabotage that. Nah, that can't be real. That can't be true. We'll push people away that are really just trying to love us for who we are, but it's hard to be seen for exactly who we are.
Right? We'll look back at pictures where I was like 60 pounds heavier, and I'm like looking at him like, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you tell me I looked this gigantic? I didn't see it. I don't care. I loved you either way. And it's funny because hearing it, that should do something, but that it's too strong embedded within me that no, that was.
Well, and it's interesting because I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life now. And I walked in the gym and I had my sports bra and there now this part of me is like, don't be a hot dog, Tami, but I can see my abs. Like, I have a six pack. I'm really strong and confident in my body now, but that body dysmorphia will come and be like, but is it defined enough, Tami? Or if someone will give me a compliment, I still can't see myself as I actually am now, because I still see that girl that was 40 pounds overweight who was too afraid to go out and be seen as the fat friend. And it's still there. So I feel you on that. It's really hard to be like, no, like, this is who I am now. We've worked really hard. We are not that person. And we are, like, I'm loved unconditionally. Like, to allow your inner child to actually feel that. But ego has a really hard time, because what if that's a lie? What if that's not true? It doesn't even want to take that risk.
Is anorexia your brain filter showing you something different than what actually is in reality? Physical reality. Do you think that's what it is? I'm trying. I'm not anorexic, so I can't understand how somebody that's skin and bones can still think that they're fat. Can you explain this to me?
I explain it from an ego perspective. Like, I see our ego as inner child's protector, and it will do anything and everything to try to get those emotional needs met. It'll try to be the skinniest one. And in order to do that, it'll go to extremes and say, no, you're still fat. Don't you see that? Like, it takes one tiny little thing and distorts it so much. And it's so sad. There's a woman at my gym right now that I worry every single day about. This woman, I have no idea how she's still here, and it breaks my heart. But I know that it's that same thing of, how can she think that? But ego is, and sometimes I just go in there and like shake your ego and be like, no. But that, again, it wants that emotional need met. It will go by any means necessary. And you take that to extremes, and this is an awful example, but when I think about school shootings, like, that kid wants to be seen, and its ego is going to go to the absolute extreme. Watch this. I'm going to be on the news. But that was an emotional need that was probably not met very early on in childhood. And there were probably many examples of when this child or kid or whoever wasn't feeling seen, wasn't feeling heard. Like those are emotional needs. And now it's gone to an absolute extreme to our detriment where it can be deadly. So can anorexia.
I've never heard somebody say that the ego is the protector of the inner child, but hearing you say it, it's like, ding, that makes total sense. It really does. And then if you have a society that's now dealing more frequently with the trauma of their inner children, the ego gets to be soothed and its job comes down a little bit. And now we're getting the best of people. Yes. So what an amazing time to be so instrumental like you in helping people deal with it so that their ego can just calm down a little bit.
Well, and I think that goes back to your question earlier about like, how do people come to me? And I think it's because when I phrase it that way, it takes away the guilt and the shame. It's because now they can see that was protection. Like when I binge eat, that was actually my ego protecting me from feeling my feelings about feeling disregarded and rejected. Oh, because now I can actually talk to my ego. And I tell people, like, name it if you have to. Like, Brenda, why are you being such a whatever? But I can see that now as like, it's something outside of me. And that way, Tami, grown adult Tami, can speak to it and be like, no, it's okay. We can sit in this. We can feel these feelings. And he was like, no, I can take care of little Tam now. I know how you protected her growing up. Thank you for your service. But I can show up for her now. And maybe I couldn't do that when I was 4 or 5 years old, right? So ego swooped in and said, you need to be the people pleaser and you need to be the caregiver and the overgiver, all of those things. You need to be this. Whereas I was like, no, I don't. And I can still be loved and I can show up for her. But I think I help remove that guilt and shame that keeps people stuck in silence to where they can then validate their story because they see it different. That was protection that whole time. Even drinking, even weight as protection. You just see it differently. It gives you a whole different perspective and an understanding where then you can meet yourself with grace and compassion and then want to love that little boy or girl and be like, oh, hell no, I'm not abandoning her. I'm not going to say those mean things to her. She hears all of it. And it just changed everything for me.
Oh, for sure. And I think that Alex and I are pretty good at doing the work. We love doing I'm a Scorpio. I have no choice. I'm doing the work.
Yeah.
So I can go deep. I've got all this stuff. And then I hit like this boundary where it was like, this is probably enough to get me through this next phase. But I will tell you that menopause and perimenopause is like shining it harder on this dark spot where, okay, now I'm dealing with gut health. Now I'm dealing with the sweats and like, it's a total change. My body is going to change whether I like it or not. Uh-huh. And I feel like now it's starting to stir up some more of that inner child work that wasn't done. So have you seen any correlation in menopause with this type of work?
Well, one, I commend you because I don't know a lot of women who have done that level of work to then notice such a huge difference in terms of, inner child work's resurfacing in menopause. A lot of them haven't even done that or don't even know they have an inner child at this point. So bless your heart. But absolutely. And again, this is where this is one of my favorite little quotes. If you don't learn the lesson, you'll continue to get the test. And so the lesson is unconditional love, even going through menopause, even though your body's going to change, even though And so we'll keep getting the test. And so if we haven't learned unconditional love for ourselves yet, guess what? It's going to show up in menopause and hit you hard. And I've learned that a million times. That's why every time people would, myself included, I would lose weight. I'd love myself a little bit more. I felt a little more worthy because I weighed less. I looked better. But my inner child, no, I want you to love me no matter how much we weigh, no matter how much we achieve. And until you do that, we're going to lose this weight and we're going to regain it and then some. I think about it in my career. If I was waiting for outside validation of my worthiness, something would be taken away. And it's like, nope, I'm not going to let you get away with it that easy. And I think when you're at this level of work that you have done, you're not going to get off the hook.
So, no, and it's going to be even harder.
Yeah, it is. It's like the tower of resistance gets even taller. But now you can look at it and be like, okay, before this crumbles and falls on me, I can actually start to look at this and that I am going through menopause. I need to learn how to love myself through this. So rather than this tower fall on me and collapse on me, I can start to take it apart and then look at what I want to build this foundation back up on. And I think that's where people, when we resist the work so much, we build that tower and eventually it come crashing down with our health, with our career, with our relationships. It's like, how hard do you want this lesson to hit you? You know, there's a gentle approach, and then there's the universe is like, hey, I tried to give you 8,000 little tests along the way, but you missed every single one of them. So
that's so cool.
But I also feel like when these things come up, they come up because you're ready. And that's when I get excited for people, is like, you're ready. And this is going to be the catalyst for you to dive even deeper. So I get excited.
Tami, I want to know if are you ever done dealing with your childhood stuff, or once you get to a certain point, is your inner child quiet and can go away peacefully, or do you incorporate them into your life and give them the joy that they're looking for?
Oh, that's key. I think if you don't give them joy, they will always be there being like, yo, you haven't done anything fun for us. You haven't done anything to fuel your soul. And so that's when she throws a tantrum. So I think I have pictures of my inner child all around, because I want to make sure that I'm bringing her into what I'm doing. And I feel that joy, because I feel like the more I can tend to her, even in the morning, when I make my morning shake, I have a picture right there. So every morning I see her and I can just smile, like just that little bit of acknowledgement. Hey, girl, like she feels acknowledged. But if I think about how many of us, we start our day and we're doing this, we're doing that. We haven't tended to ourselves. Sometimes we forget to eat. We forget to drink water. Like we're completely neglecting ourselves. And when I have children, so I'm like, if I were to do that to my kids, that's not great parenting. Well, my inner child's, yeah, I know you do that to me every day. Or if I'm never tending to myself and like how I feel, or I'm never getting outside and grounding, I feel like she feels like I'm abandoning her if I never check in. And so it's just about like, how can I tend to myself? And I just find it easier when I'm thinking about her, because it's easier for us to do something for someone else. So if I think of it as I'm showing up for you, Tam, like I'm going to do this for you, or even going to the gym, like that's my way of being consistent. Like our inner child does not want us to be perfect. Ego does, but our inner child, I just need you to be consistent. I just need you to show up every day. Just check in with me. It can look different every day, but just know that I'm still here and I'm a big part of your success and your dreams and your purpose, because I always believed in you.
It's an excellent tip to have pictures of your inner child around, or your younger self around the house, because you do totally forget and you get preoccupied and swept away. So it's funny because I've come into contact with people who are like, what are you talking about, inner child? I've never even heard of such a thing. So how do you get people to connect with their inner child?
Yeah, just starting with remembering, asking them questions about what was it like growing up? What did you love to do? And what's really heartbreaking is there are sometimes people don't remember. And I had a woman just asking like if they could think about some of the like fun characteristics, like they don't remember happy times. And so it was hard for them to connect with their inner child. And ego was massively blocking that. But like somewhere in there, yeah, I used to be playful. I used to love to have a pretend microphone and stand on the box and pretend I was singing, or I love to color, or I love to, they just start to slowly remember what they were like as a kid. And then when you can help them connect, like that part of you is still in there. And we disconnect so much and do so much adulting that we forget that we still have hobbies and things that bring us joy. Mm-hmm. And it's just bringing a little bit of that back in is what helps us tap into our inner child.
I was thinking about the men's perspective and what we as men do to make our inner child happy. And I would say probably for most guys, I would say video games.
Yeah.
But to me, I don't know. There's like a healthy level of playing and then it becomes escapism.
Yes, 100%. You're right. The pendulum can swing
right
every which way. You're right. Because that could be like, yeah, I play a little bit. That's my inner child. But yeah, when you use it as now I've completely dissociated from my life and I'm not actually processing my day or feelings because I've lost myself in this video game, the pendulum has swung too far. Mm-hmm. But if you take it all the way away and now you're not doing anything, that doesn't feel good either. And so I think that you're right. We absolutely do have to keep that in check.
So I was going to say, I'm having this revelation right now that I love to build. I've been acquiring tools and knowledge and skills. And now that I'm in my mid 40s, I'm pretty darn good at building and fixing things. And when I'm doing that, I am so happy. I'm so creative. And it's way better than I enjoy playing a video game with a story. It's almost like reading a book. But have I accomplished anything? Like ask Kati, sometimes I can just stand and look at the thing in the house that I've built and just appreciate it because I love it so much. And I just remember as a kid always wanting to know so much and being impatient. So it's cool to be on this, in the time machine 20, 30 years later with all these skills and a little bit of money to be able to do the things. And it's pretty rewarding. It's pretty fun. And I didn't realize that I needed that when I was a kid. I didn't, because my dad wasn't that guy that encouraged me to do those things. He would always hire somebody or what. And it's like, oh man, I don't want to hire people. I want to do it myself. And I love doing it myself.
I love that so much. And that is so healing from an inner child perspective, because now you are giving yourself that time and attention and knowing that you're worthy of that. And so you're doing that with your inner child. And that's why you can be so happy and so in the moment. And I tell people, it's oftentimes the things that you lose yourself in where you're just so happy and joyful. All of a sudden, oh my gosh, 3 hours has gone by. Because you and your inner child are just so connected. What kid doesn't want one-on-one quality time with you? That is our inner child. And so when you're doing things like that, and then you sat back and actually felt proud and acknowledged, what a beautiful moment for you and your inner child. They're like, we did that. We did that because you were connected to him in that moment. Oh,
yeah. And so much of the adultism is, oh, you should go do this for a living. You should go make money with it. It's not about that. It's about filling my heart with this joy. And like you said, I never thought about it as spending time with myself. I can listen to music. I can do all and the kids make fun of me. Oh, Dad, you're just swearing. You're miserable. I'm like, you know what? Sometimes I just have to weave a tapestry of obscenity to get through a certain challenge. But then everything's fine. And they're like, oh, you hate it. You hate what you. And I'm like, no, it's not that. I said, I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm just up in the clouds, and whatever this body is saying or doing, if I hit my hand with a hammer, it's just part of the process. It's fine.
Yeah, it's almost like a different form of meditation, right? We sometimes think we have to be sitting down and doing the thing, but you're right. Like sometimes you can be there, but you're somewhere else. It's a beautiful form of meditation in a sense, to just really connect on that level is beautiful.
Yeah, if I go to the gym and it gets too painful, I have to leave. Boop.
My soul just leave my body, just go for a little bit.
You do whatever you got to do there to get in sweat, get into shape. I got to go. I'm out of here.
Yep.
Kati knows all about that.
I totally relate to that. And that's been a huge form of therapy for me, but that's where I don't even think of it so much as like exercise or working out anymore. And I had a very similar relationship with exercise. It was absolutely punishment for what I ate and fear of gaining weight. That was my main reason for doing it. And I would do it to the point of exhaustion and injury. And it was awful. Now I have a much healthier relationship because now I see like, oh, I need to clear my energy because I'm an empath. I take on people's energy. I've been doing that my entire life. And now it's become even more clear. My inner child was like inundated with all of that, everyone else's stuff. So I was never present in my own moments. That's why I don't have any memories of my childhood. So like, I need to go and clear my energy daily. But that's also where I move emotion and I release some of that. I process those things through exercise, but that's my form of meditation. I often get my greatest ideas because I'm like locked in and channeled in. So I'm like, I don't eat calories, schmalaries. Like this is gold. And I wish people saw it as this beautiful gift to give yourself and your body and a way that you connect with your inner child, because our body, like emotion, emotion, like it all makes sense. Like it's such a beautiful gift when we think of it that way, as a way to honor our body instead of punishing it.
Oh, 100%. That just shifting the perspective makes all the difference. And this is really like my time of just trying to soften. I've always been so hard and I've built up these crazy thick walls. I was, oh, wait a minute. It feels better to be softer. If I can just relax into myself and surrender and let flow happen, then all of a sudden it becomes so much better. So for me to connect to my inner child wasn't difficult. Like it was just one of those things where I think I always knew she was there with me. But then watching Alex trying to connect to his inner child. And I remember one time we did a meditation together where I took him down and I said, okay, you're sitting with your inner child. What does he want to say to you? Alex doesn't want to say anything.
Yeah.
I put that little guy to bed long time ago. It was, man, just some of my I was telling this story on my other podcast, The Firmamental. When my parents went to Mexico, I was 13 years old and I was home alone, just taking care of the house, taking care of the cat. And my biggest fear as a child was burglars, like an actual home alone experience where burglars come in. And man, my dad had no idea. I knew how to, he had a bunch of guns under the bed. I knew how to work every single one of those guns that if somebody were to break in, I was the man of the house at 13, and it was not going to be like funny Kevin on Home Alone. It was like, okay, I have to protect myself. And what 13-year-old thinks like that though? It's just so bizarre. But this was my life. Like ever since I can remember, 3 or 4 years old, my dad getting drunk and being gone for basically 2 or 3 nights a week, where if something happens at home, he's totally useless, complete garbage. And I'm the one that has to, I don't know how I'm going to rescue my mom at 5 years old, at 8 years old, but those are the things that were going through my head. And then, yeah, just the culmination of being 13 and it's like, okay, I know how to use these guns now. And my dad doesn't know that I learned basically how to do that myself without, thank God I didn't blow my own head off or anything like that. But it was, man, growing up was just so weird when you have this absent father who's supposed to be there to take care of you. And I know a lot of people can relate to not having a dad. My dad was around, but he was destroying himself. So that was another battle, watching this person that I'm supposed to be learning from do everything that they're not supposed to do their body. So basically my dad taught me everything what not to do.
Yeah.
So my goal was to get married early, move out, and just be a man. Done.
Well, and thank goodness your ego took you that way. Whereas some people's ego is like, well, this is all we know. This is all you're good for, and go down that exact same path. So thank goodness. But you can see now where there's limitations even with that, right? Of how those things keep showing up in your life. But again, sending so much love to your inner child, because you're right. No kid should ever have to have that fear of abandonment, because you're right. Sometimes they can be physically present, but they're not present.
Oh, yeah.
Especially emotionally. And I have very loving parents as well. And sometimes if you have someone who's just not emotionally available, it's confusing as a kid, because it's like the love, what's there, you want it to be there. You, as a kid, we expect that, and you want all of it. But when you have a caregiver who isn't tapped in themselves and is blocked themselves, and they only have access to this much, but you feel that there's got to be more, that feels like emotional abandonment. Mm-hmm. Like, why can't they love me this big? I've talked to so many people, their parents couldn't say that they loved them. They couldn't hug them. I can guarantee you, if I went back and asked their parents, did you love your kid? Oh, absolutely. I didn't know how to show it. I couldn't say it. So that kid's ego took this story. Well, why don't they love me? Why can't they hug me? What? I must not be good enough. I must not be skinny enough. I must not be smart enough. I must not. They're trying to make sense of it. Why can't they give me all of this? It has nothing to do with us. It's about them and their childhood wounds. And so I finally understood that from just my own story of, oh, that love was there. She just didn't have access to it. But I created this whole story around it. But you just think about kids have to grow up so fast, and those kind of responsibilities for you is just like being able to be a kid. So when you do those things now that feel like you're bringing him back and giving him a little taste of that childhood and what a male in his life should have been like, you're that for him now. Like, you get to reparent him. Like, I'll do some woodworking projects with you. I'll build something with you. I'll show up for you. Like, that's so healing and so beautiful.
Yeah, totally. That's, yeah. It's interesting to hear our kids talk about us. This is another fascinating phenomenon. Like, I love the work that we're doing on ourselves, and my heart breaks for my dad, because I just, I don't think he'll ever do what he needs to do for himself. And that's all I want for him.
Right.
It is what it is. But Kati can attest to this. But when the kids talk about us, like our eyes just open big. Like, what are they seeing? This is so bizarre. This is so bizarre because in my mind, I'm like, okay, perfect house, perfect life, perfect marriage. And they can always find the little things like, mom and dad, you've scarred me this way.
Like, what? You don't know how good you got it.
Right?
It doesn't matter what you do. People will find problems. People are good at that. They'll find problems. And I shouldn't say that we're perfect, but damn it, we try our best to be
100%.
like a great husband and wife team. Like we're not everything. Everybody who knows us has seen us. They know that what we are with you is what we are with our kids, is what we are with each other. There is no, I don't know. We're not these characters. We don't put on these facades for people. So it's interesting. And sometimes I'm like, maybe I should be more of a character for the kids, but I don't know how to do that. And even Kati is, you're a little bit too honest with them.
But I have found that too, is not trying to be this perfect role model. Like I'll let them see me in my range of emotions because I need to be able to help them when they have big emotions. Mm-hmm. But if I'm always like, I can't let my kids see me upset. I can't let my kids see me crying. I can't let them see that. Then they're going to be like, well, mom never gets upset. Mom never cries. I've taught them how to only feel and express this range of emotions when I know they're going to have those big feelings. How can I help them move through that safely versus my 6-year-old son turning into Hulk? That's what we call it when ego takes over. Like Hulk doesn't make the best decisions. And then Hulk's out the door and guess who's left with the consequences? You are, buddy. We have these conversations all the time and it makes sense to him. But I tell my kids, especially my daughter who's 11 and she is way too smart for her own good. Like she's an old soul. She gets it. But I have to tell them, like, I'm feeling triggered in this moment. I need a moment to regulate myself before I can come back and actually talk with you guys. Or I made a mistake. Like my ego took over in that moment and I can apologize and I can be straight up about it because I want them again to see that they're going to have those moments too. It actually happened last night with my son. We were talking about like how to be respectful when we came back to our apartment and he says something like, I won't let Hulk yell at you. Well, then Hulk did later. And so I'm like, something about his promise. And then he felt, I broke a promise to my mom. And I was like, Arlo, like you didn't. Hulk just swoops in and he takes away your power when he does that. And that stuff makes sense for him, even at 6 years old, to understand, no, Arlo wants to stay in control. When Hulk takes over, he gets me in trouble. So
it's cool to have
I don't ever try to be perfect
comic
with my
book
kids.
hero to relate to, but
yeah,
that totally makes sense, especially for little boys.
Yeah, he gets it. But I know that my kids are my biggest teacher. And I tell my daughter all the time, if I'm doing something, I want you to tell me because then I can go to work on it because it's oftentimes you're my mirror. She is a mirror for me on what I need to work on still. So I'm like, bring it on. Just
our kids do that to us constantly. And then Alex is, why are they always picking on us? And I'm like, no, they're telling us something. It's like, if we can drop teachers. Our egos. No, they are, dear. Come on.
They're mean children.
If we can soften to them and drop some of the ego in that moment, because it's a teachable moment. And some people still have a hard time with this idea that your kids are teaching you something. Yeah. Even though they're young, they're teaching you something. So that's been a big shift in my own experience, is the moment I realized that my childhood didn't happen to me, it happened for me. Like my soul chose that situation so that I could experience and expand in a certain way. Right? What do you think about that? Do you think that we choose the families we're born into knowing full well the amount of trauma we're going to take on?
I do. Once I've understood soul contracts, that also made sense. And just again, all of this is meant, like you said, help me evolve, help me. And if I wouldn't have gone through all of this, how would I ever relate to people? How would I ever be able to help them from this perspective if I hadn't gone through all of that myself? If things were just gifted to me, and I've seen that. I've worked with dietitians or other counselors or therapists where they haven't done this kind of work. And I'm like, you can only take me so far if you haven't done this work yourself. Mm-hmm. And so I have a deep appreciation for people that have had those childhood experiences. I just want people that have gone through that to know, no, you have that story for a reason. That didn't happen to you. There's a gift in that painful package. It is up to you to go find it, to open it up, and then share it with the world. But people don't want to open it because it feels too painful. There's a gift in that, and you were given that story for a reason. As painful as it was, sometimes I feel like that may mean your purpose is even bigger. You just have to be brave enough to go in and look at it. I'm like, what kid at Christmas sees a present under the tree and doesn't want to go open it? But if we all saw our story as that, that is a gift sitting there waiting for you. Go open it.
That's my biggest aha moment of 2025, when it clicked with me that it's not my job to feel sorry for somebody because they're going through hell. Wow. I was like, holy smokes. I don't want people to feel sorry for me when I tell these stories. It's just, I am the incredible man that I am now because of that crap and all the work that I did. And when I see somebody that's sitting in the shit and going through it, that's the thing now. Now I just am like, wow, you're actually lucky because you don't realize it now, but what you're going through is the thing that you needed to get to that next level. So yeah, everything you're saying, boom, nailed it.
Yeah. And if you're a guide to help those people see that, because I feel like that is part of my job. Like I might just be holding the flashlight for them. Come on, this isn't so scary. We're going through this dark night, but you're meant to see the healing that's in here for you. It isn't just this dark, scary place. There's love in here. There's healing in here, and your gifts and your purpose are in here. We just have to go find them. But to be that guide and helping hold their hand and for them to see, hey, how did that guy turn all of his pain into purpose? Maybe this is happening for me. So when you have people that are going through it, for them to know that, oh, there's a reason for this. This is happening for me. What? And I love that. That's like my favorite thing. Like I will find a way to make sense of this and how this is happening for you. And you always can. And often going back to the kid thing, sometimes what they teach us is meeting their emotional needs. Oh, maybe in that moment I wasn't seeing them and they're telling me that you didn't see me. And my daughter will now say that I wasn't feeling seen in that moment, Mom. Damn. Well, she's right. So, and same thing when we sit down and we have these conversations with people, like sometimes they just want to be heard and seen in their experience. And so when you've gone through that yourself, like you hold such a safe space for people, and that alone is healing.
How do you not get sucked into wanting to save everyone? And because that drags you down too. On one of the last episodes, Kati can attest to this. In the meditation, I basically fell off the table, and I was just mourning the fact that I have this superhero tendency that I want to save everyone, and I had to mourn the fact that I can't. Now, did you ever go through that?
I love that you said that, because I have definitely been in that place. And now I see it as an empath. If I continue or just having weak energetic boundaries, if I'm taking that on for people, I'm denying them the gift of going through this process themselves, the healing that we have all done. I would be stripping that away from them if I'm trying to take on their burden, if I'm trying to take on their feelings and pains. I'm not giving them the gift in doing that themselves and going through that process themselves. So I almost think of it now as I would be denying them that gift. And it might not look pretty at first, and you're like, but I also realized if I am this, I see it as a vase. If I'm standing here and I'm a vase and I just tip myself over because I'm trying to fix everyone, there's nothing left in that vase for myself, for my kids, for those people. Like eventually there's no way I'm going to be able to serve them. So I'm like, okay, stand this vase up. And for a while there, I was really good at standing the vase up finally. And I was pouring in, but I was like, I keep having to pour in, doing all this self-healing and all of this stuff because I had so many cracks. Because I'm still trying to be that savior. I'm pouring into me. And that was when I led that online program. That's exactly what I was doing. I was taking much better care of myself, but I was still trying to be everything for everyone. So I had so many cracks and it was exhausting, where I was having to take 2 or 3 naps a day. I'm not a napper generally. Like I want to be going and doing the thing. I'm like, what is going on? But energetically, I was exhausted from trying to take on everyone else's stuff. So pretty soon I saw, I was like, wait a second, if I just have this vase up, I patch these holes, I empower people to do the work, to take care of themselves, to do these things, and I can pour in, and that overflow then goes out to everybody else. And I'm no longer depleting myself in the process of taking care. And just to be that model can be how they heal. Oh, I saw how Tami did that, how she showed up for herself, how she took care of herself, and just hoping that, again, being that guiding light of how to do the work is how you can help them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's higher perspective. That's now where, and I feel like 2025 for me especially has been this incredible shift from, I don't want to be that person that lays my hands directly on a person's body, but just heal through osmosis is just how I kept getting it downloaded, was through osmosis. Do the work on yourself, because when you elevate yourself, you bring everybody else up with you.
100%.
And then at the same time, I'm protecting my boundaries and my own energy.
I think this is how you save the world.
Truly.
Yeah.
Truly.
Think about how many broken men and women there are walking around, and they're broken because of this little person, this huge disconnect. It's huge. And I don't think our kids are immune to it either. Everybody is always in such a hurry to grow up. And I keep telling the girls, I'll draw the line for them, a physical line. And I'll say, here's this little sliver of when you're young. Here's how much you get to be old. And here's the little sliver of just before you die. I said, so why are you trying to rush this tiny little sliver? And I am constantly reminding them, just don't worry. You're going to be old for a really long time. Enjoy.
That's all it's going to have to be.
Yeah, enjoy this. Enjoy the fact that mom and dad love you and take care of you, and you have an amazing home to live in and grow up in. And it is fascinating though watching them. So I think that in our Generation X, there is a lot of people that buried their children very quickly and early on. And I was hoping that Kati would talk a little bit about her sensitivity and the fact that she didn't have a voice as a kid. So I'm gonna throw that to you too. But my big thing is men, and there's a lot of broken men out there right now, and this is a huge part of it. And they're dealing with it in very unhealthy ways, making the world an unsafe place, because we are the protectors of this place. And then when you have a bunch of compromised imbeciles just playing video games and not doing, what a man should be doing, and from a moral standpoint, it's a scary thing.
Right, and it throws everything.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just gonna say it throws everything off, because when they're like in a weakened masculine energy, then the feminine has to jump into her. It just jacks everything up, and everybody is disconnected from their true power.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes back to childhood wound stuff. And that's why we have men who are doing what they're doing and women who are doing what they're doing. If we could just understand that, we can come back to that healthy balance. But man, it is out of whack.
It's not easy to love yourself sometimes.
I always tell people, like, this work is so simple. It's inner child work. Like, just you feel triggered, you honor the feelings and you repair it, but it's not easy, because you've got 20, 30, 40 years of ego telling you the exact opposite, and having all of these tactics and coping strategies and things. And it's like undoing so many years of deconditioning and deprogramming to come back to what is that baseline of love, self-love. Ooh.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be hard, because this is soulful work. This is why you're here. But you didn't come here to have a Garden of Eden experience where everything is perfect. We were meant to have the snake come and say, take a bite of the damn apple, and women. But this is the human experience. We chose to leave probably what was the Garden of Eden in our soul expressions and come and have this really layered, complex human experience, because along with the shit, with the trauma, you have such beauty and you have physical touch you get to experience as a human, and not in your soul version. So I think that people forget that it's okay to have the deep shit, because then we have this incredible light at the same time.
There's duality, right? Everything.
I was going to ask you, Tami, what did you have to unlearn in order to get to where you are? Like, what was one of the big unlearning moments?
Not to abandon myself. That's been a big one. I used to do it on the surface. That was like when I would binge eat, right? I would abandon myself and I would binge eat to numb the feelings. And so I was abandoning in those moments, or just not being consistent. So there was things in my like 3D life where I wasn't showing up consistently. But then I took that on a deeper level where I wasn't showing up for myself emotionally and like really honoring myself. Like I'd feel an emotion, like, nope, too big. That's maybe where the binge eating would come in. But I also think about when I'm a very intuitive person, but I would sometimes even ignore that. Like I felt it, I knew. And then I was like, nope. It went the complete other way. Like, but now I can understand why I did that, because growing up, no one talked about anything. Everything was swept under the rug, but I feel everything. So I know when there's tension. I know when shit just hit the fan and now you're trying to cover it up with smiles. But no one ever validated that for me. So no wonder I was like, well, this doesn't make sense. So I disconnected from my intuition really early on, and I abandoned that part of me. And so now, like, I really have to learn to trust that. Like, Tami, no, when you feel it in your gut, you have to honor that. You have to listen to that. Go do the thing, send the message, make the call, say what you need to say. But that is hard for me because I am a people pleaser. My ego would rather me abandon myself than make anyone around me uncomfortable. And this just happened. Like I've gone through a separation and I'm in that new phase of dating. Oh, and that's brought up a whole other, we talk about levels of things, menopause. Like that's for me right now is like, oh, and I recognize I was more concerned with, I was so aware. I'm at the gym and I know where all these other people are because I'm so hypersensitive. I'm so hyper aware. And so when I'm having this moment with this person, when I talk, I can't even be present in that moment because I'm already worried about what everyone else is thinking. And I was like, stop it. This is your moment. Be in it. Let them, same thing. Let them deal with their emotions. If they're uncomfortable, tough. But so that abandoning myself was the hardest thing. I'm like, no, I am going to stay present in my own moment. Because that's why, again, I don't really have many memories of my childhood because I was always so aware and for everybody else, or I would dissociate. No, you got to stay. So in so many ways of just showing up nutritionally but emotionally, intuitively, energetically, just stay. Don't leave me.
That's an amazing answer and so spot on for someone who does trauma work, because abandonment is one of those pillars of trauma, right? You can almost trace everything back to abandonment. So to be this strong, beautiful woman now and to say, I'm not abandoning anymore. Well, that's somebody who gets it.
Yep. Not doing that again. But it's hard. And it shows up in the weirdest ways where I'm like, doing it again. No, I just have to continue. It's intentional work. It's daily work. So you talk about, does it ever go away? I'm like, it gets easier. I recognize it so much faster, but I am not to the point where it just has magically gone away. It's not nearly as often. It's not nearly for as long. But I actually had this conversation with a woman that I'm very close to and knows me very well. I was typing an email that was like, oof, I'm sending this. She's like, why don't you just pick up the phone and call and say that? I'm like, not there yet. I can do it in email. I can sound like, because in that moment I can lock in how Tami feels. But if I get on the phone, my ego can swoop in. Tami can know what she wants to say, but my ego can still be like, oh yeah, maybe you're right. Or that, and just try to people please again. I'm like, I got to meet myself where I'm at. Right now, I can confidently send this email and say what I need to say. My goal is to get to a place where I can say these things in the moment. But it's hard for my ego to wants to swoop in and be like, don't say that. You don't want conflict or confrontation. So I'm a work in progress too, still.
Have you noticed there's maybe many people that fall by the wayside as you start to honor yourself? Or you really start to notice the people that love you for who you are. Have you noticed like certain people fall by the wayside as you do this work?
Well, 100%. I had to leave my marriage for that reason. It was just, but yeah. And there's been a lot of people you've known your entire life where they knew a version of you. And if they wanted to stay stuck in that play with you playing that character and weren't willing to watch you evolve and grow, they do start to phase out. And now I just see it as we're just on different timelines now, or we're different frequencies. And I really had to learn how to bless and release. But when I didn't know about any of this work at first and that was happening, that was so hard and it was so painful and I couldn't make sense of it. And again, ego will tell you stories. Well, why don't they like me anymore? Or I must have done this, or what did I do? And it just ruminates on these stories. And now I was like, no, I can see how that person served a purpose in my story for that time period. I needed that lesson. And now it's like a bless and release. And someone once told me about bookshelf friends. Like they were the time period, you had the book open, they were on your nightstand and you text them every day or you called them every day, but it's not that kind of friendship anymore. So you put them on the bookshelf. And I can get that down once in a while and open it back up and have the conversation and be like old times. But I have a much different understanding of how that process works and that some people do fall out or on a different timeline than you, but it's meant to create space for those that are at this other level with you. Like I wouldn't have met you guys if I wouldn't have, a couple people had to fall away and it's painful. But when you really start to see it, I would have hung on to that relationship.
I think one of the most terrifying things about who I am was so much about being a chameleon and trying to get everybody to like me and and at the same time, blend in with the background, just not make waves, just have a bunch of these people. And I don't blame anyone for me being a chameleon or me being a people pleaser, because going back to adult children of alcoholics, these are some of the things.
I was just going to say, that's classic.
Yeah, these are some of the things that we don't rock the boat. I'm a huge peacekeeper, and I think that I'm still trying to figure out who the heck I am along the way. And I appreciate anybody who wants to know me still, because I am still changing. And I'm just glad that Kati still puts up with me, because we've known each other since we were 15. So we are definitely not the same people.
Wow.
But the cool thing about the two of us is we're always helping each other level up. We know that we're not done. And I don't think we're ever going to be done, which I think is a great thing. When you're in a relationship with somebody and you're doing all this work, you want somebody to be doing the work too. It's exciting.
Absolutely. I agree.
I tell everybody that you have seen all of the worst parts of my body in every compromising position, childbirth, and you name it, he has seen it all. There's no shame anymore. But also he has seen the worst of me spiritually and energetically. And the fact that in that moment he didn't leave and I got to get through it with his help, he created that safe space. And then I got to go to the next level.
Yes.
Well, in him practicing compassion and safety and his own self-care, he got to come with me.
Yes.
So I don't know. I like the guy. What can I say?
But it's tough. It's tough, especially when you would be selfish. And I'm hard on myself too. I'm like, man, I could have been better. I could have been perfect, but I wasn't. But yeah, it's not an easy thing. It's really awesome that you are not abandoning yourself, because the easiest thing to do would be to abandon yourself to save your marriage.
Oh, and I did for years. I did. It took and I couldn't find my voice. Like when you said that, I was like, ooh, I felt that. I got to the point where we went to therapy and I couldn't tell them how far gone I already was. So she's sitting there talking about, oh, if you go on date night, you could ask each other these questions. If you could be a superhero. And I was like, hold up. The fact that you just said date night and I wanted to crawl out of my skin. Let's go there. Like I couldn't tell them. I wasn't honest because I didn't want to hurt him. But really I was protecting myself. Right. And that's when it clicked. I was like, oh, this is my stuff. And because he's a wonderful man. We didn't talk. It was protecting our inner child all the time, but it wasn't an abusive marriage. It was just a very complacent and emotional. I'd never felt seen or heard, but it wasn't anything ever malicious. It was just, he didn't know how to hold space for me. And it was a lot of that. And that's hard. Like I almost at times wished he would have done something horrible to justify it.
Right.
Because people didn't understand. And I'm like, I can't worry about, and I've had people say like, how do you think this makes me feel? I'm like, the fact that I'm going through a divorce, I have to worry about how it makes you feel? Like, oh, hell no. Like it took me so long to get here where I could actually say I can't do this anymore. And then to hold that and honor that, knowing that I was going to blow up my family and upset a lot of people as a people pleaser. Holy crap. But even my daughter said, this was really hard, but I can see how this is the best thing for us. Because now they get to see me happy and thriving and going after my dreams, the same things I would tell them. Is this the marriage you would want for your daughter? Like, I had to get real with that.
Mm-hmm.
And we have had this conversation about marriage and how if they could remove the line till death do us part, because I think that marriage can serve as a chapter, just as a friend can, right? This person is meant to be with you, and you can definitely make this vow and promise to this person for the time that it serves both of us to elevate us both to the point where now we need to find something else to get to the next level.
Yep. And that's going back to the soul contract. That's how I understood that. And that's, I think, how I finally came around to making peace with it. Because I grew up Catholic, and there was a lot of that guilt. You just didn't get divorced. You died miserable. And when I understood it as soul contracts, like we were meant to come together to trigger these wounds so we could heal them. And now that I've healed them, my contract is up. And if he would have maybe been able to come along with me and do that work too, maybe we could have signed a new contract. But if I would have signed a new contract to what was still old, I'm not evolving. I'm not growing. And so that was the hardest thing, was to be like, I can't stop this process. I don't feel like I can. I am being guided and led. And if you wanted to come with me, awesome, great. But I can't. I have to keep going.
It is a wild phenomenon to have your family and friends try and keep you in the box.
Oh man, I felt that. I still do.
Even with your podcast, think about it. Me and Kati have said this a few times. Our biggest fans aren't our family.
I have family that I'm pretty sure have never even listened to an episode or never even asked me about it. And I'm like, I'm celebrating a year tomorrow or the next week. And no, they've never even asked me.
But I think there's so much gold in podcasting. It's obviously free therapy, but you get to meet amazing people. You get to uncover new things. And I think that's actually part of this chapter is very cool to get to that next level. Finding people, finding your voice, for us to know you now. It's, oh, wow, this is cool. This is another knife in the drawer. It's, oh, okay, cool. It's because there's so many, the 99% is just happy doing whatever. And I just feel like we're not them anymore.
Oh, right. And I think once you realize that, I can't go back. My soul is like, girl, that door is shut. You're not going back. I can't go back to a 9-to-5. I can't go back to I can't. Same thing like the way I can't abandon myself anymore. There is now a wall the other way where it felt like there was a wall over here. I know that there's still work that I have to do on that, but in many ways it feels like there is no going back. You've jumped over that wall, and now you've got lessons to learn over here, but you're never going back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And your kids just want you to be happy.
Yeah.
If you're happy and healthy and the energy's good in the home, the kids will thrive. They'll be okay. They'll be okay with 2 Christmases or whatever. It's much better. I know a few friends right now that are going through a really tough time, and it's very interesting how men will actually suffer and not do the thing that they need to do. They're waiting for the partner to do it. And it's, guys, come on. Like that, maybe for part 2, that would be an interesting phenomenon.
Oh yeah, I can go there.
But men are suckers for punishment. It's so weird. Yeah. And I'm no different. If part of the reason you're on this podcast is because I got hoofed in the ass pretty hard in January. That said, and Kati said, we need guests. Not that I'm done talking to you, but it's very rewarding to get to meet people and expand. And we can't just be us on the podcast all the time. There you go.
Well, you guys are welcome to come on mine anytime, and because this was fun.
Oh, I'm signing up.
This was.
I agree,
fun. I
there
can't
are
believe
times
that. It's been an hour. It just flew by. I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, what?
Yeah, this is, again, this stuff, just, you find your people and it's like you speak the same language. And this is one of my other favorite quotes is, you can't speak butterfly language to caterpillar people.
Ooh,
and I think that when you talk about people leaving your life, I think I finally understood them. I cannot explain this journey to people who haven't gone through that metamorphosis, who haven't gone in that chrysalis and been through the shit and completely dissolved who they are. They will never understand me. And I have to be okay with that. So I have to bless and release. They're never going to understand me in this podcast. And that's okay. Their soul's journey is very different than mine. Maybe they're going to have their enlightenment 2 lifetimes from now. That's another reason why I was able to let go of trying to help everybody. Like maybe they're not meant to evolve in this lifetime, but they're meant to show me what happens if I don't.
Yep.
One of my big struggles is, are people even real? Are like the 90%, are they NPCs? What is going on? I'm still trying to figure out that. Like am I the only real playable character and everybody else is for a reason? Yeah. I don't know. I know that's big.
No, I get that though. 100%. It's everyone's, what are you? It is. It's a very weird, this is a board game and everyone's just doing the thing, going about their day. And that's where I feel like people like us with a podcast, getting this message of wake up. You have a life to live. Your soul wants to grow. It wants to evolve. Ego wants to keep them safe, but that keeps them stuck in the everyday and autopilot.
Yeah. Just wake up, go do the 9 to 5 in the cubicle, watch some Netflix, go to bed, rinse and repeat. Go on one vacation a year. You're a human. Done. It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, I am taking with me the ego is protecting the inner child. I thought that was so great. And then what you just said, bless and release, I am totally integrating that now because it's a really beautiful way to say we had this moment and now it's over. And that applies to so many different things.
Yeah. And it's like an energetic cord cutting in a sense. Bless and release, but I'm no longer going to have that negative energy between us. I'm no longer carrying that story. Bless and release. And it just, whew.
No, I love it.
That's powerful.
So,
and to say it out loud too.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Now we're at the part where we ask you the question that the last guest left. So,
oh, yes.
Our last guest wants to know, what's the worst job you've ever had and why?
That's a funny question.
Right? This is good though, because I know immediately. Well, one, I would say detasseling corn as a kid, but that's every kid growing up in a small town does that. And then I actually enjoyed it because I loved being active and outside. But my worst job ever was right out of my dietetic internship. And I was just happy to take whatever, right? Just give me a job. And I got just a job. It was basically, I was like a telemarketer for a company. They were doing case management, but they wanted to start like disease management. So I was calling people that had a diabetes diagnosis and like, how can we get you set up? But it was like all over the US. And I was tied to a desk, like timed and no windows. Like I literally felt it on the first day, I knew within minutes, like, oh, hell no, this is not for me. Again, I'm a Sagittarius. Don't put me in a cage. Don't box me up. So I was like, oh. But it was actually, this is now my Sagittarius also coming out, was that I had an opportunity to interview in Madison. So this was a small town in Madison. And that's, if you're a dietitian, you can get into UW-Madison, the hospital system here. That was like, oh. And so I had to make up an excuse on my second day at this job of why I needed to go interview, but I didn't tell them I had an interview. I was like, oh, I've been on this waiting list for this GI appointment and there was an opening, but I'm like, I have to do this. I have to do this. And I'm an honest person, but I definitely white lied that day. Like I had to get out of there immediately. I knew, but that leap of faith then led into covering a 3-month maternity leave. So I get my foot in the door with no promise. It was 14 hours a week. So I left a full-time job. I just got engaged to work 14 hours for 3 months. No security after that. And I don't know if I can swear on here, but I was like, fuck it. I got to do this. I didn't ask for permission. I'm just going to do it.
That's all good. Oh yeah. It's all good.
Just leave me out. But that leap, trusting my intuition and knowing that's what I needed to do to get out of that, but then to create this opportunity, then led into a 7-year career at this job, which created a beautiful foundation for the knowledge that I needed to be able to work with people one-on-one in that setting, to be able to now do what I'm doing. But I was like, oh. So yeah. Worst job ever turned into a massive stepping stone out of there.
That's so perfect that you answered it that way, because Sue Stiles had this incredible story of being virtually homeless and no food, and then just taking whatever job that she could possibly get. And it was a terrible job, but it catapulted her into the position that she's in now, that she loves more than anything. Right. So I think that you captured the exact nuance of what she was going after in that question.
Oh, awesome. I love that. Look at that. Good job.
So what's your question for the next guest?
Ooh, Yes. My question would be, what are you doing to connect with your inner child? And if you're not doing something now, what can you do? What will you do?
Perfect.
Very appropriate.
Yeah.
Tami, where can everybody find you? Because I'm going to listen to your podcast too. This is awesome.
Yeah. So it's the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing podcast, TAMI. I'm not a MMY Tami. And it's on YouTube. So I do video podcast as well, and on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of those things. And so I do a weekly episode, and it's sharing people's stories. So like, this was so good. You filled my cup today. I post a lot. I love to write. And so I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Tami Schiltz, or Tami Schiltz RD, I believe it is on Instagram. So those are the main ways to find me, or Unscripted Healing, wi.com is my website. So.
Oh, cool. I'll put all those links in the show notes. And yeah, everybody should go check out your podcast for sure, because this is honestly, I feel like this is a huge biohack to save the world. If everybody could deal with their stuff, their little things, like what, I don't think most people even ask why the hell I do this weird thing. Mm-hmm. Like, why am I that? They need to go talk to Tami.
Yeah. And that, I feel like I have this weird, like, inner child whisper kind of thing, where taking that, why do I do that one thing, is finding, that's why, like, that's so fun for me. It's like this little detective. But then when you get it, like, now you can honor that and understand it, and then do something with it and actually change, lasting change, because you have actually healed.
I am a brilliant man. I just want you to know that, Tami. And I have, well, thank you very much. You don't have to say that, you people pleaser. But,
no, I do. I know things, and I can see that in you.
So I have this lightning bolt that, you know what Tami needs? And I only want 5% of the royalties. That's all I need.
Oh boy.
No, I'm just kidding. But Tami, all this stuff that you're doing, all this podcasting, all these things that you're doing for all these people would make such an incredible book of their stories, a collection of these childhood things and the healings that come from it. And if you could do that for me, I would more than love to buy a copy of that, because I feel like everybody has a story worth telling, and everybody is inspirational. And we have these big libraries, and I picture every person being its own book. So if you could make a little Coles Notes.
Gave me all the feels. I feel like that's validation, because I put that out 2 years ago. Like, I'm going to write a book, and I love writing. And then I was actually on a retreat, did a year-long coaching program, and one of the women was a publisher. And she goes, Tami, your book is already written. It's all of these stories that you share.
Oh, well, see, another brilliant person.
But she didn't say that. She was, because I meet random strangers and I find like this beautiful purpose why I met them. But to your point of these kinds of stories as well. So maybe that was the extra. Tami, no, do that, but with this. So thank you. I will. I love that.
I see things like that. They just pop in. It's, clear as day. That's an awesome thing. And that's an awesome thing that you could give the world. And it's hard to see it when you're sitting in it with your own superpower. But wow, because what's that guy? Chicken Soup for the Soul? He made millions of dollars. And why not do that same kind of formula, but with your style on it?
I like this. Wow. Thank you. How much do I owe you for that?
Like I said,
royalties, you're right.
5% royalty. I just find that so fascinating. And I truly believe that it's a huge thing, because I love my wife very much. And I didn't mention this, but I don't know if you remember this, Tami, Viennetta ice cream cakes. Do you remember these Viennetta ice cream cakes? They're super fancy.
Yes.
So when she was younger, there is no more joy in her than when she could have one of these ice cream cakes, and she would eat the whole thing. No problem whatsoever. And even to this day, ice cream, whipped cream, fits in the house. This is her joy. This is her inner child coming out. And she punishes herself. She won't let it into the house. And that's sad. But she knows she has a weakness for it.
Okay, tonight I will go straight to the store and buy ice cream.
Well, and this is where you can tell your ego too, no, it's safe for me to enjoy this. But it's like setting aside the fear of, because again, it's not even just about the calories and getting fat from it. It's about losing the love. But if you're like, you can be fully present and love and connect with your inner child in that moment and let your inner child enjoy that, you find that you don't end up needing to binge because no, I'm actually allowing myself to do it. And I can trust myself with this because I'm fully present and I'm letting my inner child enjoy this too. Because otherwise we're telling our inner child, like, you're not worthy of that. I don't trust you with that. When you're in child, like, but I love, oh, I can't wait for this. Thank you for sharing that. Because I want, will you send me a picture or something? I want
I was just going to say, he's going to take a picture of me and my inner child with a mouthful of ice cream.
And if that discomfort comes up, like, you can allow yourself to sit with it. And that's a beautiful moment to sit in it and be like, no, it's safe for me to have this. And I have found that my energy, when I eat food like that, if I can do it I'm truly enjoying it and I'm in a place of love, I find that my body doesn't respond negatively. So from an energetic perspective, it's better to eat that in a place of love. But if it's out of guilt or shame or fear, then I'm packing on the pounds. Then I feel it in my skin, or then I see it on the scale. But when I do it because I truly enjoy it and I'm like in that like kid, oh, I can't wait for that. If my body's like, yes, and it just processes so much different. So
wow, that's
helps.
A genius moment. Really
Boom.
Good.
Right. Yeah, there you go.
It's all bonus content now.
Right?
Yeah. Tammy, I hope that you come back again because I feel like just from this episode, we could probably do some cool themes and really save the world. So I just really appreciate your time and we're very grateful that you're here.
Well, thank you so much. This was so fun. Truly, this was one of my favorite conversations. And just to be in your guys' genius and to be in your world is an honor. And it makes me feel like, ooh, I'm on this timeline. I get to hang with these people now. Okay, this is cool. So
we're pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I would love to have you on the podcast as well, just because I think I need my audience to be experienced to the work that you're doing and to hear these stories. Like, yeah, these are more real people that have gone through this and done this work and come out the other side in a beautiful way. So thank you so much. This was an honor.
For sure. And I guess for Kati and Tami and myself, we are going to see you guys next time.